Welcome back to 8 Cubes, the show where we talk about the 8 most important topics in Marvel Snap this week. I am joined by Lambie Series. Luckily, one of us is wearing glasses, so you can tell who is who. We're going to start with Silver Surfer Jubilee, who is the card releasing in Snap Packs, a 4/2 with a very interesting buff-related ability. Whenever you draw a card, give that card this card's power. So baseline 4/2, but if you can make her stronger, suddenly she's buffing cards a lot more. Lambie, how would you compare an effect like this that can hit multiple cards over the course of a game, but doesn't necessarily hit the cards you want, versus an effect like Stick or Maverick that can guarantee hitting the cards you want at a potentially lower level of output?
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, the name of the game over a larger sample size is about consistency, right? So like I do value cards like Stick a little bit higher because you actually have more agency. I guess agency is the right word. You have more control over how you want the buffs to go, where you want the buffs to go, and thereby directly affecting the end result of the game, right? Whereas for something like Jubilee, it's a bit more. All right, whatever I buff, I have to roll with it. So this kind of stuff is a bit. It's like if whatever you buff in the deck, it doesn't matter. It's still good enough. Then it's fine, right? This kind of like card is fine in that kind of like aspect. But the problem is like I think in Marvel Snap, you only draw so many cards, right? Like you don't draw that many cards. The game has 12 cards in the deck. So like how many cards are you actually like in a game whereby it's like let's say Hearthstone 30 cards. You're drawing like over a period of time. You're drawing a lot of stuff. Like it buffs everything randomly, and if everything's playable, then that's fine. But like in Marvel Snap, I think stuff like Stick tends to have way more value, right? Because like I said, you have control. I think control is very important in like this kind of with this kind of card.
Let's take it the other way. We all sort of correctly identified Stick as worse Maverick. And if we
Mm.
correctly identify Jubilee as worse Stick, well, there's clearly a role for that kind of card in a certain kind of deck. Do you think this can be a floor raiser in those buff decks, or do you think that the 4 cost makes it actually kind of a floor lowerer? Like it would be worse
Yeah,
to invest in this, like it is a trap to actually send your buffs onto this.
yeah. I mean that's basically what I wanted to say. It's the cost of the card, right? Like
Sure.
this kind of card, like it actively gets better the more cards you see after this card. Like the more cards you draw, right? So the thing about four cost is that like you don't get to see that many cards. Let's be real, you don't get to see that many things. So I think this might be bait. Like I wouldn't say definitely, but this card could be bait. Like Stick straight up was like something within your full control. You knew what was gonna
Yep.
happen. This one is a bit more like riding like just running with it kind of stuff. So I don't think this is gonna be that well received as compared to Stick.
I think that when you compare Stick and Maverick in this, and you take into account the dynamics that we're talking about,
Hmm.
what I come to the conclusion is that this is the one that should cost 3 and the targeted buffs should cost 4.
Yeah,
That's the conclusion I arrive at, is like, this is so much worse than the targeted buffs that it should be the cheap one. And the targeted buffs should be the more expensive ones, because we've just established that like it's going to be better to actually hit the stuff you want to hit, even if the output on this ends up a little bit higher. And
correct.
I think that that is the big thing that sticks out to me about this, no pun intended, is just I worry that even in a deck that is doing all the stuff that it wants to do, this is at best the third thing that you can do, and might actually be making your deck worse when you invest your buffs in it. I can imagine some really awesome pop off high rolls, but I have my suspicions that I don't think this will be making the cut long term in whatever combo decks are actually doing this Stick Maverick Brood thing. And I think a lot of why I think that is informed by Jeff and his release. This is a card that I think we both thought was going to be really good, and has been, through various metagame dynamics, not nearly as good as he would have been in a different time period. And I don't just mean this card is busted if he released 2 years ago when stats are everything and people are playing silky smooth. I mean, like, this card is way better in a world where people aren't playing a million Shadow Kings. And fundamentally, in as much as Jeff has a problem, and this is also a problem Venus has, it's that it is occupying a space that loses to Shadow King while also losing to the reason people play so much Shadow King. That's a big problem for a card to exist in. It's like the analogy I used on the KMB cast was, it's sort of like going to a Magic the Gathering Pro Tour playing the second best graveyard based deck, and everyone is playing all these cards that say your graveyard doesn't exist. And then you also lose to the deck that's playing the best stuff in that space. And that's sort of how Jeff feels for me. He's been like undeniably a good card, but not a great card in the metagame sense. He is deeply harmed by the current shape of this metagame. That I think it is really notable to me that this is a card that I thought had an incredibly high floor that hasn't really even managed to meet where I thought his floor would be.
Yeah, I mean, like, not trying to make a pun, but like splash damage. I guess the
Yeah.
word is really just splash
Dude,
damage. It's like,
it's impossible to not make that joke whenever we talk about this stuff. I get
yeah,
it.
yeah.
I get it.
Because I mean, probably for the next few topics, we'll probably have to make the same joke again.
Yep.
But like, anyway, so yeah, the thing about this card, like you said, right? It dies to the same things that the better cards also die to in the same category. Like the cards that have super high like multiples when it comes to buffs and all that, all die to the Shadow King as well. So like this one is just, yeah, we die to the same thing, but I'm a bit worse. So like obviously it's not gonna land that well. Like, but when I say it doesn't land that well, I mean it just didn't land well like now in the current state of like the game, right? So like if we ever move a bit further away from like green power, wait, what's the term again? The actual correct terminology
Empowered.
for it. Yes.
Empowerment, I think. If we move far away
If
from
we become less
empowerment.
empowered in Marvel Snap, which is funny to say,
Yeah,
but
that's
like
this seems
if we are
bad. I don't want to
yeah,
move
yeah,
away from empowerment, man. That's
straight up sure. If we move away from empowerment, then maybe this thing does a bit more for other non-empowered base decks. But for now,
yep.
like everything empowered loses to the Shadow King. So
Yeah, and I do think this guy is just like pretty solid and pretty good. And in a world where we were playing, a Sholau deck or
mhm.
any of those decks that are doing Kitty Pride stuff, right? Like if those decks were playable, he'd be in them. They're just not very good. A lot of these dynamics apply to Venus, but I have a lot more sympathy for her because all this stuff is true of Venus, but she's also just a card that goes in like 4 completely discrete archetypes and makes them all better. This is a card that can go in Destroy. This card can go in Dakin Discard. It works really well with Collector in those discard decks that are just like getting rid of a bunch of stuff. This is a card that goes in Bishop Angela decks. This is a card that goes in Zombie Horde decks. Every time you hoard, you get another extra point. That's a really great thing for that. This is a card that goes in Invisible Woman for Steps decks. One of the things we've talked about on this channel before is the power of identity in Marvel Snap. People knowing what their deck is about. And that's a double-edged sword. Sometimes you get people who are, I am a Surfer gamer, even when Surfer is not even good in the Surfer deck, right? But this is a card that buffs a lot of decks effectively that have a really strong identity. And I think it's awesome to see a card that does that. And that's why I like her so much. Because even if she's not taking all these decks to tier 1, she's taking them from tier 3 to tier 2 a lot of the time. They're all green power decks. Every problem that I had with Jeff, I have with her. But she's doing it for so many different decks that I just have a lot more sympathy for where she's at in the metagame and a lot more belief that, like, if this was a different metagame, we'd be seeing her be actually good.
Yeah, so what you're trying to actually say is that she actually landed a little bit better than Jeff per
I think
se because
so.
she in the words that it's actually on her text as well, she empowers more decks, right? If you think about it that way, like she actually is she has more homes, and then at the same time she isn't extremely powerful in any of these homes. Let's be real, but like she does more for more people, for more things, for more decks, and I think like identity as a thing in card games, I mean in games in general, is very important. Just because like players want to feel like they're like there's a main, like when you play like MOBAs, you play like League of Legends, Dota,
Yeah, I
stuff
was a
like that. Like
J4 main. What I did. I played
exactly,
Jarvan
exactly. Like
4.
identity, right? Like
Yeah.
I play a lot of Riftbound recently, and like people will take like the worst archetype and just like play it all the way because that's them, that's their thing. So I guess this being a card that can like let everyone do their thing a little bit better should be making the card slightly more popular, but at the same time, this card doesn't make anybody do their thing way more, like way
Yes.
better than it should be. So that's
It,
also the
like,
issue.
what I love about her is there's a lot of decks in Marvel Snap that are like a 6-card package and then the rest of the deck, right?
Yeah,
And what
yeah,
she does is all those 6-card packages, she's like, I'm the 7th card. I think
yes.
that's great. I think it's great that there is a card that is like that. And I think that in another metagame, we'd honestly maybe be concerned that she's too good and too ubiquitous. If everyone was always playing this stuff, this was 2024. could play all of these different packages, right? You're playing Zombies, Invisible Woman. Maybe it's 2025. I don't know. Zombies, Invisible Woman, Silver Surfer. She's doing too much. She's busted. But because none of them are actually like tier 1, she kind of just isn't. She's just the queen of making these interesting tier 2 decks better.
I mean, I kind of know the analogy as well. Like, I think the analogy was like, I think it was like, was it Elsa or Angela when they were just perma best in slot in multiple decks, right? Yeah, that was the issue. This one is not best in slot. This one is just like, it helps if you have it in the deck, I guess.
I don't know that we've ever had a card like this. The closest I can think of is like Prodigy, Mother Ascani, maybe, where it's
Prodigy
just like
probably did a lot though.
Like just like consistently doing something in a bunch of spots that you probably wouldn't expect it to necessarily go in. And I saw that Venus had like a super high play rate, and that makes a ton of sense to me because there's just a ton of stuff to do with her. None of it is that good, but there's a lot of it. Monstro, kind of the opposite problem. Monstro being an 8/8 that discounts itself by the cost of the top card of your deck. I've seen him being played in Hella, and I've seen him being played in techno-organic virus decks, and I think that at least in Hella, there's like a viable justification for this card, which is it costs 8 and nothing else. And in the TOV decks, I think you're mostly just getting stat smogged by Wilson Fisk, and then they play a Mobius in the mirror, and you have an unplayable 8-cost card in your hand that isn't even giving you information. And it's just like, I can't imagine there's a situation outside of Hello where I want to play this card, but here's the question that I posed to Alex on the Snapchat that I'm going to pose to you as well. Monstro versus Howard the Duck.
Wow.
Then secondarily,
so low.
We have stooped very low. Monstro versus Howard the Duck if Howard was a 1/3.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
So I have to choose one to put into my deck, basically.
Yeah, you have to choose. You're playing like an Iron Lad Jubilee deck. You got to pick one. Which you picking?
Oh my god. Yeah, I'm picking the duck, man. This is the first time I'm ever saying this, but I'm actually picking the duck, man. Like for not because I really care about looking at the top card of my deck, but because I think it's way more playable than
because it's like you actually realize Monstro. The stats. Yeah.
Yes.
Here's the second question I'm going to ask you. What would it take for Monstro? What numbers? You can change the power and the cost. What numbers do you think it would take for this card to be good in its current... Text box doesn't change, just the numbers on the card.
Okay. Yeah, so I think, so this card, I feel like it's supposed to be designed in a way by it's nigh unplayable without like a proper discount on it. Like it's meant to be that way, right? So I don't think I want to change the 8 on it, but the stats need to go up. Like
how far
10.
Up? 10?
Maybe 10. So, it's scary though because I want to say 9, but 9 feels too little. But in Marvel Snap, every point matters, right? So like maybe 10. 11 sounds scarily insane, but so I guess 10.
Yeah. Like, I think there are numbers on here. I think they maybe got lost in the sauce and we're like, it's an octopus. We got to put 2
Yeah, they want to do 8,
yeah,
right?
And it's so like, I don't think you could do that. I respect it so much as a top down. Like, that's awesome.
I mean, they could do 16 and then this would be tier S, but like,
what do you think it would be if it was 16? Like, let's say they put 16 on the power. What do you think the cost would have to be? Like 10?
I mean, they will never stray away from this flavor, so it will have to be 16 power with a different effect. Like 16 cost with a different effect. They won't stray away from the multiples of 8 for sure. It's an octopus, man.
16 cost and it gets discounted by, and then you have like a mathematical formula.
No, every card you draw permanently discounts. That might be too strong. That's actually too strong.
I think that's a pretty compelling card. 16.
Okay, but it has to be in your opening hand, right? If not, it's a bit insane.
Yeah. I think that's
it becomes Xiaolao 2.0 if you can discount in your deck. That's just messed up.
Yeah. It's gotta work in your hand. It's gotta work in your hand.
Yeah.
I like that though. You gotta get a cool number on there.
Yeah.
The Golden Gauntlet was won by Unhelpful Yoda playing a Super Giant deck. Now, I think that this deck is a really interesting choice because it is a way of saying we're getting small and techy as an answer to a metagame that was big and combo-y. And metagames go like this every so often, where the metagame is such that things are being big combo decks, and what's going to beat the big combo decks is packing your deck full of as much interaction that turns off the big combo decks as possible. And That is definitely the thing that Unhelpful Yoda was capable of doing with his list in the GG. Supergiant with Cosmo and Negasonic is particularly strong into various Carter combo decks if you're able to get priority. He used some incredibly smart Ascani Sun priority plays that I thought were very cool. And overall, a great player with a great deck selection and some very good play in what I would argue were pretty unfavored matchups towards the end. I talked to Yoda about it, and he said that he agreed. Pretty much every matchup since the top 8 he thought he was a little unfavored, because just when you're playing a deck this small against other
Yes.
decks in the mid-range space, the bigger mid-range deck tends to win, and he was the smaller mid-range deck every time. And he managed to skate through it and played really well to do so. But that is definitely a notable thing, because I think people will see the matchups and be like, oh, this beats TOV. You're not favored. You're not favored in that matchup. It's not what you want. You can, but you're not favored. And I think that that is a really cool dynamic that that Marvel Snap has, the metagame keeping moving in this way. To what degree does the popularity of this deck post GG suggest that maybe stuff like Captain Carter isn't that big of a problem?
I mean, okay, so firstly, I want to congratulate Unhelpful Yoda, because like I recognize the name.
Yeah,
This
he's
this
been
person has
around.
been around
Yeah.
for a while. Like even in my like most like hardcore Marvel Snap days, I recognize the name. So like I just want to say
Used
congratulations.
to play a
I know it's
lot
been
of
around for a while.
Nimrod. That's a Nimrod. That's a guy
I
who in
think
my
so,
head
yeah.
is like I have Nimrod PTSD
Yeah,
as
he was in my
Unhelpful
Twitch
Yoda.
chat a lot as well, so
Yep.
I recognize the name. That's great, man. Congratulations. But yeah, no. So this deck is very. I don't want to say interesting because it's just tech soup per se with a bit of stats, right? Like I understand the whole issue with like if you're playing against another mid range deck that your tech is useless against, and then they're like the slightly more tech towards beating the mirror version, whereby they are not that many. They're not that much techy as you, but they're like a bit bigger.
Yep.
So you probably lose some points on average. Yeah, I get it, right? Like this versus TOV stuff. Okay, not always, but like I get it. I get it. So like I think that the beauty of this kind of decks is that like firstly you have an answer to almost everything if you build the deck right. And it's also conquest, right? Like I don't think this deck gets that kind of mileage on ladder a lot of the time as much as it should be. But like in conquest, because like
With
you
open deck
once you
lists
know,
too.
yeah, exactly. Open deck list conquest, right? Like once you kind of know which cards in your deck just obliterate your opponent's deck, and then like you snap, you play the high stakes games with like that card in your hand, knowing that you win for sure if they play into it. Like I think this kind of deck has checkmates. I guess that's the word I want to say. Like this kind of deck has checkmates when you know exactly what you're checkmating. And I guess he did it well. He played well into his potential outs, and then like he checkmated when he had to, and then he won. That's what I think.
The deck he played didn't have TOV in it, but basically every other deck in the top
Yep.
8 did. And TOV pretty clearly the most performant card in the metagame here in the Golden Gauntlet. And I think it's been, if you look at the stat sites, a pretty clear outlier for a while now. Now, I think it's sort of, for high-level players, been hiding in the shadow of Captain Carter. Like, before they started adopting actual ways of dealing with it, like you saw Yoda has the Supergiant, and Andrevar and Unhelpful and Movi both brought Cosmic Ghost Riders for the Carter matchup. And if you're not playing those cards, I snap you on turn 2 as the Carter deck as soon as I
Yep.
see him doing anything. So that is definitely like a real adaptation they've had to make, but those sort of low to the ground decks have been making that adaptation. Does that represent a nerfable card? And I realize I'm sort of blending the next two topics. We're getting into more nerfs later, but like, does TOV represent a nerfable threat in the same way that Sholau was, that has maybe been hiding behind Star-Lord? You know how Sholau was hiding behind Star-Lord? Maybe TOV's hiding behind the Captain Carter stuff for high-level players a lot of the time, perhaps?
Okay, this is very cool. So I think what TOV does for tech or like stun anti-meta decks. I use stun and anti-meta because I came from a Yu-Gi-Oh like background. There was this period whereby there was this deck that had like maybe like it's almost all like trap cards and like floodgates, and then they had like 3 boss monsters which like synergize with every single trap card in the deck. So that's like what TOV does with tech cards, right? It just makes every tech card a bit bigger, so even if they're not relevant for the matchup, they're just like big enough to fight. So I think that's what TOV does. Right now, I don't think it's like something that you should be really nerfing, because I think allowing yourself to play like a bit more of tech soup, which doesn't lose to random things that you're not teching for, is fine, you know. And TOV is actually not like free. You actually have to spend like energy to play to buff your guys, right? It's not like straight up just free. So I think it's okay. I don't think it's that big of a nerf target, but I will have to see, right? Like if no matter what they release in the near future, still can't beat tech soup with TOV, then maybe that's a problem. But I think now it's still okay.
Moving on to actual discussion of nerfs, to me,
Mm,
I still want to hit Mother Ascani. I still want to hit
mm,
Prodigy. I still want to hit Grandmaster. But if the Carter deck isn't really performing beyond that, I think you can kind of just leave it alone. But to me, I think dinging all of those cards by 1 point is just the most free thing ever. Not just
yeah.
because it is helpful to the metagame as it currently is constructed, but also because it is helpful to future metagames, because those are cards that whenever you make a design mistake that the card is too strong, the cards that double that card are what make it an even bigger mistake. And I think that
Yeah.
they'd be doing themselves a favor by taking points off of them. But I also think that, like, in as much as there is something objectionable about Techno-Organic Virus, it's the 75 tech card constructed nature of it. And so part of me
Mhm.
is thinking, like, okay, it's time to take a point off Mobius. It's time to take a point off Stardust. It's time to make them pay a sufficient cost to actually put that card in the deck. And that's sort of where my head is at. I don't think I feel safe nerfing Shadow King right now because of
Mhm.
just how much empowered stuff there is running around. But if you told me 3-3, I'd listen. If you told me 4, I'd be like, no. And this is all
Mm.
sort of in
Mm.
service of tomorrow's video, which is going to be a faux TA. These are like my preliminary thoughts on it. Because after GG, I feel a lot less pressure to nerf one of Maverick or Captain Carter, which is great because I couldn't figure out how to do it. So now I'm sort of at like, what if we just nerfed all the copiers and all the tech cards? And then we'd actually just like have a little bit more open space to play with.
Yeah, okay. So I think my contribution to this topic, very interestingly, is I just want to talk a lot more about Shadow King
Go
specifically.
nuts.
So I agree that I 100% agree that you cannot make Shadow King a bad tech card right now. Like making Shadow King a bad tech card right now is, to me, 100% a mistake, because it's the literal card allowing you to not play wombo combo. Like if you choose to not want to play wombo combo scalers, you kind of have to play Shadow King, right? So that's kind of like what allows you to like climb the ladder and still play not wombo combo tech
Yup.
cards. So I think Shadow King should probably stay the way it is. As a 3/3, totally fine. No one will care. They'll still play it every single time. But like, yeah, increasing the cost might kill the card a bit. So I don't think you can actually like do that per se. So yeah, I guess that's what I would say about Shadow King. Like I don't really know for sure like what they should be. Okay, the thing about nerfs is like this topic, as much as we want to talk about nerfs, right? Like it also makes me think about what we could buff, you know, like the
I
thing
think
is
there's a
like
lot
the
of
nerf targets are more obvious, but
there are cards I want to buff that I think I couldn't because they'd be like strong in ways that are not fun. But like a card I would
like
like to buff is like Shadowlands Daredevil. And that card's clearly like
mm,
good enough, but it falls off so hard at high levels of play where it's sort of like one of those situations where I worry if I buff it, it'll ruin the game for a bunch of people who like don't play competitively and it'll not
yeah.
actually do enough for the card to see competitive play. But he's like a card that's like cards I want to buff are cards that add texture to games and make the predetermined outcomes happen less. And so cards that shuffle
Yep.
other cards in decks are always on my radar as like, I would like to do that. I would like to make these stronger. Like, what if he shuffled in demons and then buffed all the demons? You know, like just something,
Just
right?
straight up buff the demons, right? Yeah, I think
Yeah,
that's actually pretty cool.
like what if he just did something, right? Like what if there was more there, right? And I just like little bits of things like that. There's like those are things I wish I could buff because I think their counters are so clear. But my worry is that like for the person in the meat of the population curve, I think Shadowlands Daredevil is already a pretty good card because they're not really
Yeah.
appreciating the downside to it a lot, right? And so that's not a safe buff in the way that I would want it to be. Like a Surtur, right? I would love if Surtur was like a safe buff, but I don't think he is. And that kind of stuff is a little worrying. Last up, we have a card coming out in the event this week, I believe, that is Quicksand, a 2 that stops your opponent from gaining energy, bonus energy, the next time they would do it. Now, first of all, there is, I think, either a misconception about this card or Second Dinner does not know how to say words, which is, I think people are concerned that there is a discussion that has gone around where people say, Quicksand, that's not going to stop Fallen One because Fallen One says set. My contention is that Quicksand has the exact same wording as Jim Hammond. So if something works with Jim Hammond, it will work with Quicksand, or Quicksand will stop it the first time it goes off. So Fallen One taking a fist to the chin here. And interestingly, the place I think Quicksand is actually at its best, and this is going to sound a little bit insane, I think Quicksand is at its best against Electro. Because
Ooh,
every Electro deck
that's true.
is built to play Electro on
Electro on
3
3.
into a 5. And they don't, like, I don't know if you've played any of these decks. The difference between having Electro and not having Electro is just getting to play a 5. That's it. Because by the next turn, you can play it anyway, right? You get the 5 on 4. You'd be able to play the 5 on 5. These decks don't actually see a lot of benefit from having 7 energy on 6 or 6 energy on 5, really. It's almost entirely about having 5 energy
5.
on 4.
Yeah.
And I kind of think she blows that deck up a little bit. Obviously, she blows up Fallen One, but blowing up Electro is not nothing. That is a real role.
Yeah, I mean, I'm using the binder thing again, like, because it's cards, right? This is one of those cards you just get, and then like, it sits in your binder until like the meta requires her to win the game. Because if the meta revolves around bonus energy, she will win you the game, right?
Yep.
Like, let's just put it that way. So yeah, I mean, the card's gonna sit there and wait for a time to shine. But I like that there's this kind of tech cards. You know, like we've had tech cards for green power. We've had tech cards for the big guys. We've had tech cards that move the guys away from the location. Juggernaut, best card, whatever. But like that, this is like one of those tech cards that when it's a time to shine, like which was it Stardust or something that like released and then like didn't immediately do things and then
I think
I
you're
can't
thinking
remember.
about
There was a
Ghost when they changed Ghost to
yeah.
be...
No, okay, it was Ghost, not Stardust. It was Ghost. Yes. Like it released and then like nothing much happened, and then time for the card to shine came eventually,
It
and then like
never
this is probably
came,
one of those cards.
but
I mean, this one might, this one will. I think this will eventually.
no, this one is definitely a card where it's like, the only concern I have is, can I use Luna? Like, the wording of the card is a little bit specific. If your opponent would get bonus energy the first time they don't get it, right? But like, is the first time referring to the turn? Like, if I have a Luna Snow and I play a Star-Lord, does it stop the entire amount of energy I would gain? Or just
Or
the
like one
Luna
instance,
Snow and
right?
not the
Yeah.
Star-Lord? That's the one
Yeah,
bit of area where I have some concern.
Okay, this one is some like MTG like chain
Yep.
stacking thing, right? Like you need to know, does it blow up the entirety of the additional? Or is it like one stack and then the other one just
I think I read it as blowing up the entirety of the additional, but I
Ooh.
don't know. And if I can use
No, because
Luna
it-
Snow as
yeah.
like a prophylactic for this,
Like if they changed it to the next turn, your opponent would start with bonus energy. Then I
that is
think
what it says.
agree.
I
It's like
think
it says the next time.
the next time.
your
Yeah,
opponents
you're right.
would
It says the
start,
next
yeah.
time, but it says the next time they would start a turn with bonus energy. They
Right.
don't. Is the next time they would start a turn with bonus energy Luna Snow or Luna Snow and Star-Lord?
Oh no, we gotta have chains in
I don't
chains in
know.
Marvel Snap.
All right, y'all. Thank you so much for watching. As always, I've been KMBest. He's been Lambie Series, and he's about to take us out.
All right, guys. Hope you like that one. Like, comment, and subscribe, and we will see you guys on the next one. Bye bye.